I'm Mark Redmond, and this is Coffee Talk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Furlak, Chair of the Guitar Department at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. We're joined, as usual, by our Assistant Chair, Cheryl Bailey. Hey, Cheryl.
Hey everybody.
And our Senior Coordinator, Ben Cody's here, as usual. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Hey. And our guest today is Mark Redmond, who runs a beautiful concert series in town, and we're going to dive in and talk to him about it. So thank you, Mark, for being with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. Nice to see you guys.
This is so cool because Mark is the first person who is not a Berkeley faculty member uh, or chair or alum who's been with us, but is so significant to our work in Boston and what we all do that we're so excited that you're breaking new ground with us today. So,
All right, no pressure, no pressure.
no, this is so great. This is so because people always listen and they say like, where can I go hear great music? How do
Uh-huh.
I get involved in making it happen? How do people do run concert series? How do they run nonprofits? Where can I
Mm.
play?
Hmm.
How do these things work? And then Mark runs this beautiful series here in town, and it has a huge history. So it's kind of the perfect way to answer everybody's questions when we get there. So you're the best. This is going to be
Well, we'll see. I'm learning some things.
I think that's great. But I guess the first most important question mark is how do you take your coffee? Do you drink coffee?
I do drink coffee. I knew you were going to ask this, so yeah, I'm sort of I've got two modes. I'm a black coffee in the morning person, 2 cups usually. Uh, Pour over. I'm not too particular about the coffee. It's usually just whatever's decent at the grocery store. Pete's Major Dickinson's blend has been doing me right for a long time. Uh, and then in the afternoon, I need an afternoon dose too. And my wife got me an electric mocha pot a couple of years ago. I had a mocha pot that I up on the burner. I melted part of it, as you may have. I probably wasn't supposed to swear, was I?
That's really okay.
Um,
Don't worry about it.
so she got an electric one, which is kind of funny. It's like the same little format, but it's on a little electric burner. You plug it in and not burning the fossil fuels, and it's not quite as good a product, but it's it does it.
It does it for you.
Mark, I actually am a mocha pot person, and
Are you? Yeah.
I recently moved, and they have what do you call it, induction
Oh
stove,
yeah, yeah,
and I
right.
had to buy an induction. Mine is, well, they all have names because they last so long. So the
Right.
original one was the old man. Then he eventually died, and I had the red man. And then I have the little man for a little cup,
Uh-huh.
and then this is the new man.
Okay.
Okay, and just so you know, but anyway, on the induction stove, it's so
R-
precise and so fast.
Yeah.
And then I was in New York, in my apartment in New York, and it's an old gas stove, and I was so
Uh-huh.
impatient. I was like,
Yeah.
what is taking this thing so long? Because I got so used to the power of the induction. It's like, psh, like you kind of put
Yeah.
it on, you get spoiled by that gratification of, wow, here it comes bubbling up through the thing. But I'm a big Mocha Pot fan.
Hmm.
They're just like, you can't be. They're like the battleship. All you have to do is replace the little ring in there, and they
Yeah.
last forever.
All right. When I have questions, I know who to call now. Okay.
There
Um,
you go.
if I'm getting coffee out, I love a cortado. That's like the most delicious thing in the world. So yeah. So big fan of coffee and music. So I'm in the right place, I guess.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
totally in the right place. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's funny because, we started asking people that question just because it was the name of the show, but it says a
Yeah.
lot about people and
Hmm.
how they think about how they've planned out their whole coffee strategy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Usually comes up throughout the conversation, so you never know.
Uh,
You never know when it will come back again.
yeah.
Um,
Okay. I'll be ready.
Will you tell us a little bit about the history of how you started is it a nonprofit? Was it always a nonprofit, your series? And like, what was the first inspiration for you? And when did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So uh, it was not all, it is a nonprofit now. That's a relatively recent development, just the last few years. But I started. putting on small concerts in a storefront space in Union Square, Somerville, right at the end of 2013. Um, uh, the way I like to say it is I have played at playing some instruments, but I'm not a musician, but I am somebody who, for whom music has always been really central. And I was trying to get out to see live music of various genres in Boston for, for a long time, and had started thinking that it would be fun to be involved in putting some events on. And I knew, well, in my other life, in my professional life, I'm a mental health counselor, and I was working at the counseling center at Lesley University in Cambridge. And our office admin person, this is a long answer, but was also a professional musician. She and her husband are both work in the classical music world, and they had opened this little storefront in Union Square called the Green Room, which I think is still there. I'm not sure, but they had, I don't think they run it anymore, but they had opened it as a teaching space and a rehearsal space. And it was this tiny little room that had a like decent piano in it. And um, I'd been starting to get to know some of the musicians in Boston's jazz scene by there were a few years there where I had this now feels like an old-fashioned term, but where I had a blog where I was taking pictures and writing about live music in Boston, and started getting to know some folks through that. And then so it was just really fortuitous when Annie and Michael got this room, and I learned that they had a piano in there. I approached them about, maybe putting on some small events, and so that's now 13, nearly 13 years ago. And things just kind of grew from there. That was a tiny room that was, if there were 25 people in it, it was like sardines. But the vibe was really nice. And what I found really quickly was that, uh, to my surprise, like my surprise and kind of my chagrin, really, musicians were really into it. And I was like, how is this something to get excited about? This is like, there's no money in these shows. Like, there's going to be very few people there. But what I found out was that uh, a performance setting that was really about the music and really about listening, and not about selling brunch, or not about, the other things that jazz gigs can be about, was the feedback was like, this is a good thing, keep doing it. So that's sort of where things have evolved from. So um, I've presented in a bunch of different spaces over the years, and really just started in Somerville by accident because I knew the person who had the room, and then eventually it sort of transformed from just being a Mark passion project to incorporating as a nonprofit, which has helped make some things more possible. It's helped me go after some grant funding and things of that nature. So.
Tell us about the name.
So mandorla is a word. Okay, there's a little story here actually. So I'm told it means almond in Italian, but where I ran into the word was when I first moved to Boston in my early 20s. I hope statute of limitations has got to be up, because there's a story about a theft coming up. It's a very small theft of no consequence, but that's what's coming. I worked for a little while in the at the Boston Public Library in Copley Square. I was working in the gifts department there, which was like this vast, like, cavern in the basement where books that were donated to the library were processed by this one librarian who slowly went through books to see if the library might want them. And then, anyway, it was a really wild place full of strange characters. But some of the books that were on those gift shelves waiting for processing sometimes didn't make it into the library. And a lot of them weren't going to make it into the library. But one of them went home with me one day, and it was a book by uh, a, a psychologist guy. And he was writing about the term mandorla as it's used by in psychology, kind of, or spirituality, kind of describing this overlapping place of two circles. It's like a Venn diagram, sort of the place where circles overlap. And I love the word, I love the imagery, and I always kept it with me, and was looking for a way to use it. And so when I incorporated, or when we got together doing this music stuff, I love that word because it's just it sounds good, though it confuses people. They always think it's Mandalorian or mandolin. uh, but I don't know, that kind of place of meeting feels really important. Meeting between musicians, meeting between audience and musicians, meeting between audience members. Before we hit record, Kim, you were talking about one of your students, an older guy who's looking for community in live music, and that's all those layers of meeting feel really important to me.
That's amazing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think, for the people who we have so many people in our community who are going to be inspired by this story. And
Mm,
also, I think that we're in a time where a lot of people feel like it's so hard to start. And I just love this idea that you're like, well, I met these people and they had this place and we just put on a concert. Like, could you
yeah.
talk a little more about like that first time, like that
Yeah.
first maybe run of things, like
Yeah.
what was that like? What did you
Yeah.
learn? How did you pick the players? Like all that kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. The very first concert was a piano player you guys know, Bert Seeger. You probably know Bert, and a singer who I wasn't familiar with named Rebecca Sullivan. And I'd met Bert just through seeing him play and chatting with him, and because the room had a piano, I was some of those early shows I was thinking in terms of piano players to work with, and I don't remember how I ended up asking Bert, but that was the first one. There were maybe like five or six people there, you know. I mean, it was most of them knew me, some of them were related to me. Like it was, um, and those first few were kind of like that. It was like musicians that I'd met some way or another, and uh, yeah, what was your question? I don't know, just
it was
how
like,
was
what
that?
were the
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
went into the first show? Like, okay, you're gonna put on a show, you've got the musicians, you've picked
Right.
people you think are okay, it fits the space, it's great. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
what were the things that, you had to think about in terms of getting the word out, like
Yeah.
working with
Yeah.
different people?
It's funny. It's kind of hard to get back in the headspace of that
Yeah.
time because like the things that I take for granted now about getting the word out, like I didn't know yet then.
Yep.
And uh so I was relying a lot on social media, I think, early on. And uh, you know, good old pounding the pavement and hanging up flyers around the neighborhoods of where the venue was. And um, I started a mailing list pretty early, which at first, probably lost me some friendships because it was, like basically anyone whose contact information I had.
Yeah, right.
Um, and yeah, those
Yeah,
things like that. And I think, and early on, I was really relying a lot on my social, just my communities, like people that I
right.
knew who
Yeah.
cared about what I do in the world. And um, it's always nice to have friends come to concerts. Thankfully, I'm not as reliant on that now, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
now that it's become a formal nonprofit, what were
yeah,
some of the steps you thought that were significant or something
yeah,
that you learned as you built it out?
yeah. Well, yeah, this is maybe helpful for people to hear because it's like none of it's intuitive and I didn't know any of it. Like,
Right.
so I went to a couple years in, I went to a workshop that was put on by an organization that I think has a new name, but then was called something like Volunteer Lawyers in the Arts or something like that. And they had these nonprofit incorporation workshops, and I went to this one, and it was totally overwhelming. Like it was way too much information for where I was at. It was very intimidating, and I was like, I am definitely not there. But what I learned about in that workshop I'd never heard of before was sort of a half step towards nonprofit incorporation called fiscal sponsorship, um, where you can sort of using another organization's nonprofit status. Kim, you're nodding. You've done this before, I think.
Yeah, like they become an umbrella,
Yeah.
like they're your
So
umbrella. Yeah.
right. And so I found
Yeah.
this place that I think still exists. That's somewhere outside New York, an organization that exists only to do this. They just do fiscal sponsorship for nonprofits called Fractured Atlas. Um, and so that was great because it gave us a way to be able to solicit donations from people with the legitimacy of a nonprofit without actually having gone to that effort or and expense, honestly, yet ourselves. So that was good for a couple of years or a few years probably. And then in about 2022, um, or 21 maybe, I decided to sort of take the next step towards formally incorporating as a nonprofit. And that again, I've tried to kind of learn from people around me, and I had a friend who'd used a local lawyer to help with a nonprofit she was establishing, and so she'd had a good experience. I called that person. I worked with that person to do this. It is a thing you can do on your own. I just I it was pretty daunting. So hiring someone to help with that was helpful, and that meant a couple things. It meant I had to recruit board members, um, and so gathered a small group of people who were interested in this and or had already shown interest in one way or another up to that time, and yeah, so that's how that went.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a wild experience, right? Because this has been you've been shepherding this beautiful thing, and then when you have a
yeah,
board, now it's almost like you also report to the board. And so like you're
yeah,
kind of in
yeah,
there supporting you, but you're
yeah.
sharing it. And so it is a switch of mindset in a way, isn't it?
It is a switch of mindset. I mean, I would say the way that the Mandorla Music Board functions. I mean, I'm I'm on the board. I mean, that we don't. This isn't. I'm not paid for what I'm doing. I'm not a staff person. I'm part of that board, but de facto, it's a very supportive group of people. But there's not a lot of in a more mature organization, there might be more of a feeling of kind of oversight. Like it's not. This is more like a cheerleader team, kind of,
That's
which is
great.
nice to have. But
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, yeah,
That's great. What do you say, like what advice do you have as you're as you're looking for musicians and things, like how are you
yeah,
thinking about it? Because now you have a whole bunch of different venues
yeah,
and you
yeah,
have almost like different series. Like
yeah. A
kind
little
of
bit.
how are you looking to match? Like are you thinking of audiences and venue? Are you
Hmm.
thinking of like how are you thinking of it? Like how do you think about who you're gonna reach out to?
Yeah, that's really interesting question. That's all evolving all the time. Like, and I mean, this whole thing for me has been very much a um, sort of figure it out as I go, which is not to say winging it, because it's not really winging it, but it is. It's been important to me not to
Mhm.
get too far ahead of myself and just sort of see what works and then do the next thing and see how that works. And so, yeah, right now
Mhm.
there are a few different venues where I've been working regularly. For quite a few years now, I've co-produced a jazz series in Dorchester that Cheryl has played on with Rick McLaughlin's group a few years back. Um, and that's that one we've mostly sort of kept that broadly defined kind of within the jazz space. I mean, we run that series with the name jazz in its title. We call that the Dot Jazz series for Dot for Dot for Dorchester. Um,
Cool.
yeah, and the other place where I've been producing regularly for quite a while is another place that, well, you've both played, Kim and Cheryl, in different settings there at the Eustis Estate in Milton. Um, I gotta say, the way that came about is actually like one of the biggest learnings about this whole thing for me. That was just, I went to an event there
Mhm.
and I figured out who had run it, and then I just reached out to her and was like, hey, I do this. Are you interested maybe in working together? And it turned out the answer was yes. And like, so now that's been, I don't know, a bunch of years, and we've done that started as just a couple of outdoor concerts, and that's grown into this year will be the fourth year of a multi-performer festival afternoon in August, and some indoor concerts like you and Mela played the other month, and um, that setting has been a place to. It's kind of emerged for me as a place to experiment with genre a little bit and do some stuff that definitely reads jazz. I mean, the festival there is a jazz festival, but with the indoor stuff, it's been fun to kind of branch out from that a bit. Um, uh, as a music fan, my listening is all over the place. I sort of started doing producing jazz concerts because that was a community that I'd sort of been paying attention to and following in Boston. But I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. So it's been fun in that setting to start to play with that a little bit, to um, have some things that have kind of a chamber music feel or have kind of a folky kind of feel or um, uh, some Brazilian stuff, different things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, that was, I was thinking about that place because I think that it felt like when I was playing on the series that it felt like the series itself has a real feel to it and an
Hmm.
energy to it. And
Hmm.
then that place does too.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
the staff there, they're so excited.
Yeah.
They're really thrilled. And
Yeah.
like, and like when the audience came, there were some people who like, maybe they knew what to expect and most people didn't and they just knew
Yeah.
to expect something different.
Yeah.
And because of the timing, it was like the fall, so it was already
Yeah.
dark. And so
Right.
to have something
Yeah.
like, I felt like you kind of hit exactly the right mark, like this music that's like really surprising, but also kind of meditative, and this
Mm,
beautiful place that gets kind of dark as you come
mm,
in. And
mm,
then the sound, you have beautiful lighting,
mm.
like the whole thing, it felt very magical. You go
Oh,
into
that's
the
awesome.
little reception room and there's the big peacock. There's this big
No,
peacock there. Everybody's got to go meet, and they love to introduce you. And it's this beautiful, beautiful living room,
yeah.
19th century living room with the peacock and the
Cheryl, did you see
reception
the
for you.
peacock?
Have you seen it?
No, I
You
don't think because we played out on the
You were the
porch.
were
peacock
outside.
was in the room right inside from where you were. I should have introduced you, but it's a very bizarre feature of that place. Is this giant stuffed peacock?
Yeah, and he's got a name and
He
everything, and
has a
I
name.
can't
I can
remember
never
his name
remember
right
it.
now, but you cannot miss him. But it was
Yeah.
like it was really beautiful. It was just such
Yeah.
a it felt, and
Mm.
even speaking from the stage, you felt like you wanted to speak a little quietly that night because it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
everybody was really held close and in.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then you could see though that if it was summer and everything was outside, it would be like this
Hmm.
totally different
Different.
thing. And I think that that must be such a beautiful creative part of the
Hmm.
experience, like shaping the series for you, like thinking about the season and the timing and the people and the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And I mean, the thing I always say that's like halfway a joke and halfway completely serious is that like this is totally selfish for me. This is like me getting to put on concerts that I would want to go hear. And so um that's the main guide in terms of programming. I mean, and it's fun to it's fun to kind of visit different places musically. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's good for players to know too, that,
Hmm.
like your creative work as a presenter is actually
Hmm.
the creativity of of really writing the series. You're composing a
Hmm.
series. So when you're
Hmm.
playing a concert on it, it's like, well,
Hmm.
your role is to serve that. Like
Oh,
how
wow.
is what
Well,
you're doing serving that expression? Like you have your own part to play in it, but it's an overall kind of
yeah.
beautiful thing. I think that's really, really cool. And then I think
Hmm.
that helps because then you feel more a part of it in
Hmm.
that way.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't have thought that I would want musicians to think they were serving anything more than like what they were there to do that time. But
Right.
but
Yeah.
I keep the bigger picture in mind. Like it's important
Yeah.
for me to have some aesthetic variety and some variety in terms of what kinds of band leaders we're seeing in terms of age and gender and ethnicity and those are all things I pay attention to. So I want to have some variety in all those ways.
Yeah. And I think it says a lot too because like I was talking to Mimi Rabson who's played on
Yeah,
your series
yeah,
before
yeah.
and I felt in common with her that once you play on it, if that's your introduction, you also want to go to it.
Yeah, Mimi
Like,
and Dave come out all the time.
yeah.
It's
And
which is
isn't
like
that
that's
cool?
like the
Yeah.
biggest validation ever is having
Yeah.
musicians come out, I mean, that's because
Yes.
that's kind of a lot to ask. I mean, those are work nights for you guys often, and when you're off, like you probably don't necessarily want to go out, but it always feels great to have musicians come out to shows. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What are some
Mm.
things you learned from doing all the different venues? Like, were there certain
Mm.
things that come to mind as now looking back, having done music in a bunch of different
Hmm.
spaces with different people?
Um, Well, working in relationship really is great. I mean, one of the things that makes the Eustis Estate thing great is that like Mandorla Music is getting this beautiful place to be able to put on concerts, and they are clearly getting something out of it too, which is that they're bringing, these events bring new people to their location. Like there's the natural audience for a place like that is pretty niche. Like it's folks that are into fancy old mansions, and so I know that people have come to concerts who've then gone back there to do other stuff, which is a total win for them. So that's one thing, is that like it's good if everybody's getting something out of it. This is a different kind of thing, but something that's become important to me over time is trying to be sure that the places that we're presenting are as accessible as possible. And I mean both in terms of um, location, but also in terms of just building accessibility ADA wise. So the church in Dorchester, Cheryl, where you played, part of what's wonderful about, I mean, that place checks almost every box, except for they don't have a piano, but like it's right by the T, there's parking there. It's a very modern building that's fully wheelchair accessible. Like I mean, it's kind of a unicorn in that way. It's got all those things going. Um, so what was your question? What are some things I've learned? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think about location a lot, but then sometimes I get surprised. I've done a few things at a church in West Roxbury that I kind of found my way there by accident. I've been doing some stuff at Hope Central Church in Jamaica Plain, which is really wonderful to work with and a great location, but there's a bunch of steps required to get up into the sanctuary where we were doing concerts. You played there too, Cheryl, with John Wheatley.
Yeah, that was the first one I did with you, and it was
Yeah,
lovely for the duo. And the
yeah,
way you set it up with the lighting and stuff, it
mm,
was great because it's such an intimate,
yeah,
um, musical
yeah.
duo. And anyway,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
was lovely. But yeah,
That was
I
great.
see what you're saying about that though, and I'm looking at it from
Hmm.
if I wanted to go hear music there
Hmm.
and I couldn't get in there.
Yeah, so I guess the point I was driving at though was when I sort of started having cold feet about presenting there because of the accessibility issue. I was looking around first for another spot in JP because that's a good location to be doing things. And somebody recommended this church that's in West Roxbury, not far from there, but not right there. Um, it's not very accessible. It's not easy to get to by T. Um, but I've had pretty good response there. So, who knows? I mean, like sometimes that's one of the things I've learned too, is that like, who the hell knows? I mean, we try so hard on this stuff, and some things people really come out to, and some things people don't come out to, and some of that you can make sense of, and some of it you can't. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
um,
think that's right. I think that's, and
hmm
who's to say, I mean, I didn't know about that cool old mansion, like right
hmm
down the street. And
right,
I was thinking, like, I was talking to a guy there and he was like, oh, yeah, I come now and I walk my dog here and you can
hmm
hang out. And I was like,
hmm
that's kind of nice. Like, you could get away and go there,
yeah, yeah,
and check
yeah,
other things out. So, in a
yeah,
way, you are also sometimes just showing people a different part of
hmm
the area.
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, for the first few years, everything I was doing was in, again, just kind of by accident, but it was all in Somerville. And I've lived in Boston for about 30 years, and I've never lived on that side of the river. Like I lived in JP, I lived in Dorchester, now I live in Milton, and so it's been exciting to be doing more stuff kind of closer to the parts of the city where I've lived, and where there's just a lot less live music opportunity. But part of the point I was going to make about that is that it's been cool to see folks that came to events that I put on in Somerville get on the red line and come down to Ashmont, like which for some of them is just not, it's like not on their map. It's not part of their world. So that's kind of cool. Like the city is not so big. It's good to be reminded that like you can go somewhere just a few miles away. You can do that too. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cheryl, what about you? What's on your mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I love your series, and I am always seeing things that I want to see, And I'm like, dang it, I'm out of town or I'm working. But believe me, I am so, you're always programming great stuff. But I really, I mean, I love your organization, and really as an independent artist, organizations like this have been really a lifeblood. And it's interesting that you said you were surprised that people wanted to play, because we do love to play in places where you're just presenting the music, and there's an intimacy that you don't get in a club. Like if you're playing the Blue Note, it's kind of like they shuffle the people in and they shuffle them out, and there's all that kind of barrier to really, you are there playing music, and and there's something that is lovely. Actually, today I did a concert for I guess they're called the Vivo series, the celebrity series. Anyway, there was a guy there who heard me when we played there at the estate.
Oh yeah.
He's like,
cool.
"Oh yeah, I heard you guys,
Oh.
whatever," and I bought your record, and I was like, "Oh, great." And but that's the kind of thing, like, especially non-commercial music, let's say, it is a community, so your organization is so important. And I love this idea of you, when you're connecting with these venues, it's benefiting them, and it benefits the neighborhood, because maybe I'm going to come out to some place, especially I'm still kind of new to Boston. I'll be like, wow, look at all this cool stuff here, and this is lovely. And I think it's so important on many levels. And it makes me think about the Falcon in New York. Now it has kind of turned into a venue. It's in the Hudson Valley, but it started out in a guy's backyard. And I remember getting a call to play there and driving up in some neighborhood. And I was like, did I GPS mess up? And he built the space in his backyard, because especially maybe more so at the time when it started, there weren't any venues. Like, as you said, there weren't a lot of places to go. And I always love that the spirit of this or that. Instead of sitting around complaining there's nothing to do, you make something to do. And the community does support it, because in that case I remember going in, and then it just filled up with everybody. And he was doing a similar thing. He'd have bluegrass, or he'd have jazz, or he'd have folk. And communities do need this. So I mean, you are providing a service to your community and to the artists. And it is really, to me, I think what you're doing is a vital force for us. And all the folks like you that are courageous to, instead of sit around and say there's nothing to do, make something to do.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. That's very kind. And yes, amen to that, totally. I mean, like, there's nothing worse than like somebody oughta, right? I mean, okay, well, maybe you're the somebody, right? Um, yeah. And I mean, so much of the exciting stuff that I see happening musically in Boston is happening because of that, on that kind of level. I really take inspiration from other people that are doing this kind of organizing and presenting work at this scale. It's totally inspiring. Um, uh, I mean,
I'm curious
I
if
would
you're
start naming
familiar.
names, but I'll forget people and then I'll be embarrassed. So, but there are a bunch in Boston. There's so many people making so much cool stuff happen.
That's what I actually think that's true. I was going to ask you if
Yeah.
you are familiar with the South Arts people. And
Yeah.
'cause as I've done there, and now they're actually really actively making a whole circuit in, like, Tennessee and North Carolina. So,
Yeah.
before they were all separate entities trying to do this thing,
Yeah.
and now
Right.
they're blossoming out. And I think that's here. I mean, there's so many wonderful. I mean, maybe there's competition behind the scenes that we don't see, but it seems like people are supporting each other.
Yeah. I never want to think about it in terms of competition. And I mean, I think, if there are tough choices to make, like if there are three things you want to go to on a night, like that is the best news. That's like it's a vital scene, right? And I think that's true all the time. Like there is, you know, I try to get out to see some live music, but more than I get out, I take such pleasure in knowing what's going on. And there's so much. We're so lucky. I mean, it's such a rich scene. And yeah, I don't feel a lot of competition or really any between kind of other people doing the small, well, I don't know, small, but the more grassroots kind of organizing stuff. I mean, um, And not that we work together that actively, but it's just it's inspiring all the time to see what people we all know are up to, you know. Mm.
Yeah, and I think I know that when I played at the Eustis, there was this guy who gets very active in the Guitar Society for classical guitar. He came to check out your series
Mm.
and started going
Hmm.
to it. And then
Hmm.
it just brought him all this energy for this thing that he's doing in the library systems
Oh.
down in the South Shore.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
you
it's
introduced me to
like
him, I think.
right
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
George
Hmm.
and then he got in
Hmm.
touch with his friend who wants to start something in Portsmouth in the library system there. And so they're
Yeah.
like, I think that's really cool that people come to check things out.
Yeah.
Um, there was a drummer who was at that concert who he always sends me stuff. He's like, I'm having sessions at my house and I'm
Oh.
thinking of Mark's concerts and he sends little videos out
Oh
of like
wow. Huh.
improvisation in his home. And
Huh.
it's just cool and it's just like, oh, that sounds great. That's it. It's like just kind of almost like continuing that reception conversation.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
I
that's
think
great. Yeah.
that's really neat
Hmm.
that energizes people to go to the next thing or to start the next thing is very cool. And I think that's a lot of the spirit that you have because
Mm.
like you and Cheryl just saying, because you don't have a competitive spirit
Mm.
and you're just creating really like sound environments.
Mm.
I think that's it's really helps everybody want to come out and do things and that's what we've been hoping
Hmm.
that people will more and more want to build, especially, in these 5 years after we were all
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, totally. Right. I mean, that context is so important. I mean, I think like one of the things that COVID maybe gave us was like an I'm not sure if we've hung on to it, but it's like a real appreciation for just how precious it is to be able to be together in a time and a place doing meaningful things together. Like that's like we kind of lost all of that for a while there, and it's just really precious. And I mean, I think coming together to do something beautiful and to kind of experience joy together is it's really radical. And um, there's so many things at work that kind of make that hard to access or make that hard to even feel like is possible right now. I mean, I'm being kind
Yeah.
of vague, but we all know what world we're
No.
living in, right? So
Yeah.
like, it
Yeah,
really
that
mat it really
yes,
matters.
that
Yeah.
you're doing something significant by making that connection and going out and doing something positive
Yeah, right. Yeah.
in your community. I think
Yeah.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
something you
Every
can actually do. Yeah.
It is something you can do, and it matters. I mean, it it matters a lot. I mean, those first few concerts that had 5 or 6 people at them were fine experiences, but being able to for musicians to be able to play to a room full of folks that are enthusiastic and attentive and interested and sincere, like there's definitely a reciprocal thing that goes on there. Everybody's getting something from that. Um, it must, you guys tell me, but it must feel better to play when you're playing to that kind of energy. And it certainly feels great to be in the audience with musicians that are interacting in that way. Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, to audiences that are open,
Yeah.
and that
Hmm.
that want to be there.
Hmm.
One thing Ben always asks this question, so Ben, I'm setting you up, but Mark, when you just said that we all kind of learned about the value of being together. I think that's
Hmm.
true, especially for those of us who are a certain age, like a little bit older. But I
Hmm.
think one thing that we're realizing is when you grew up in the COVID time, when you were away from people when you were younger, it is actually hard
Hmm.
to think about like taking that step to be
Yeah.
with people, you
Yeah.
know what I mean, and kind of put
Yeah.
yourself out there,
Yeah.
because it wasn't as natural before, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I mean, speak to that if you want to about like kind of getting young people involved. And then Ben has kind of a question that he asks everybody that I think would be a
Okay.
nice time for that. But what do you think about that? Like, have you thought about have you found like a way to sort of communicate to younger audiences to the value of coming out and hearing live music or
I got to be honest, I haven't had a lot of success in drawing younger audiences. I mean, like I really notice it when there's someone under 30 in the room, you know? Um, uh, so I don't know. I definitely haven't really cracked that nut. I mean, I can think of a couple of events that I've put on that have drawn decently well from the Berkeley and NEC kind of worlds, but that's really rare. And I don't know what to make of that or how to think about that. But I do know for people that are in that age group, I mean, I have a daughter who's a college student, and I know, she spent her ninth grade year in her bedroom. And and I see among her and her peers, like, yeah, just some it's challenging figuring out how to kind of be in the world with other people. Like that sort of all stopped at a pretty critical time, you know. That's not necessarily disastrous. Like she has a full and happy life and there's
Right.
other people in it, and but it's like uh it, you know, I I hear from a lot of people that folks that are kind of in that age range now are not as acclimated to like going out and doing things, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there is something to be said, especially if you're a young musician, going to things is
Yeah,
really a part, like just being a part of the community,
yeah,
being a
yeah,
listener and being there and being a part of an event and just
yep,
kind of being that person that goes to stuff is part of building your own community that will
yeah.
end up being around your music, right?
Yeah, and I guess I've sort of assumed that because there's just so much going on, like right on campus at the music schools in town, that there's less kind of need to go elsewhere. But I would love it if more of the students in town knew that there were places to go in addition to the lily pad on Monday night. Like, which is, you got to do that, right? I mean, that's a beautiful thing, but like, there's so much happening um, that's off campus. So, yeah.
Right. Ben, go ahead and ask your question
Yeah,
because
now that
maybe people
they've built
may
you up.
now,
Can't,
Yeah.
Mark, you'll have to target this. So
all
now
right.
this is the pressure. This is the pressure question of Coffee Talk
Okay.
right
All right. Well, I
here.
was I was getting the pressure vibe from Ben, so I knew it was coming. Yeah.
And so yeah, we ask every guest this question, and I'm really excited to hear your answer. Given
Yeah.
your perspective.
Okay.
But what is a question that students should be asking that they're not thinking of?
What's a question that students should be asking that they're not thinking of? Huh. I'm coming up short because I don't know what questions students ask. I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
interact with
Well,
students. Yeah.
well, as somebody who runs a series,
Yeah.
and you've been in this music scene that you've helped build in your own
Hmm.
way here in
Yeah.
this area for so
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Um, what about these young musicians who are students?
Hmm.
What do you think that's hard to see when you're young that you think,
Hmm.
well, that would be important? Like if you started asking this question or you started
Yeah.
thinking in this way, this could help you lift off in a way you might not see from where you're sitting.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe some of it would come back to that thing we were talking about earlier of like, if you want it to exist, just make it. Like, um, you know, I had the benefit of having the confidence of a middle-aged white man when I started doing this. So not everybody has that. I wonder how that came off. Anyway,
No, that's
but
great.
but
No, but
like
talk about what you mean by that. Like
but
you,
what
yeah,
I mean is that like
yeah,
what I have found, like if I'm reaching out to a potential venue now, often I'm working in like a church space or something like that. Just ask, like places want to trade their space for money. Like that's a like it's like the things that it takes to put something like it's not rocket science, like it's like um so I guess that's the thing. I'm feeling a little clumsy talking about it, but I think that like if you want to make a thing happen, just find a way to make it happen. Like there are um spaces that we wouldn't necessarily think of that are available for often for pretty short money for rent for this kind of thing. I don't want to downplay that there is some financial risk in putting on things like this, of course, and as we've grown, I've become long since really committed to like artist guarantees. When I was starting out, these were purely door deals and nobody was making anything. I mean, it was, and um, but people value this. I think that's the thing. Like part of what makes it possible to do it is that people value it. Musicians value it, and audiences really value something that's real and they can be up close to. Like, I don't know. That didn't feel terribly coherent, but like, just do the thing, do a thing, and if it doesn't work, then do a different thing, and you'll learn something.
When you know what that made me think of, I mean, back to the thing about, instead of sitting around being, there's nothing to do around here, and then you
Yeah.
do that and you
Right.
create something. But it reminded me of a friend of mine, but actually because just thinking about, I've told many of my students about this, about when she moved to New York, she didn't have any gigs, right? And she was a piano player, and
Hmm.
there were tons of venues. So it's sort of like going out and scouting venues, as
Yeah.
you're doing, like, wow, this would be a great place. And
Yeah.
there'd be tons of where they had piano years ago, and the piano's in the corner, and she knew enough how to tune pianos and fix them up a bit. And she would just
Wow.
say,
Yeah.
and she'd come in and go, well, if you let me play here on Tuesday night, I'll tune up the piano, and we'll do a trial run. We'll try it
Hmm.
for a month or whatever the time, and I'll do it for tips. And if it catches on, then we can renegotiate. And
Hmm.
before you know it, she had gigs every night and every
Hmm.
day, and
Hmm.
and then they turned into real things. So it is sometimes that, just think outside of the box.
Hmm.
And also, it was sort of like if somebody said no, we'd keep moving. Like, you don't
Right.
just
Right.
crumble. Like, if you go to a venue and say, this
Yeah.
would be great, and they're like, it's too much of a hassle, I don't want it, too many, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. You just keep moving. Probably you'd find out that that wasn't a great venue anyway for many
Hmm.
reasons. And when you find that spot, like the spots you found, they do have an aesthetic that makes the players want to play and the audience be there, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think it's that, don't be afraid
Hmm.
to make something happen. And yeah, you might get some no's, but you're going to get, well, I guess they say if you don't try, you won't get any yeses for
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's totally it. And you will totally get, of course, you will get no's. Like you will have things that don't work out, and you will have. I mean, some of the best advice I got from a musician friend a few years ago about applying for grants is like apply and forget you ever applied, because like they're mostly going to be no's, and then if you get a
Mm,
yes, then it's a delightful surprise. Like
mm,
like and
that's
that
great advice.
that kind of thing just seems really wise. Like yeah, keep trying and maybe don't be afraid, or maybe like if you are afraid, just be kind of courageous, like um and don't take no too hard and keep trying, you know. That seems broadly applicable. Easier said than done, but like
Yeah, but that's the way, right? And I
yeah.
think you're also a person that you've kept learning. You
Hmm.
kind of like, okay, what about that aspect? Or what about this aspect?
Hmm.
Or you took that seminar and then you like, okay, that's not
Hmm.
quite right. So I'm going to go over here and do this. And you're building the thing and making it more about what you're building.
Hmm.
Even though it is true that it is your vision, it is a lot of
Hmm.
you. There's a lot of you in these series, but
Hmm.
it's also the thing itself that you're
Hmm.
kind of serving and contributing to and learning about. And
Trying to,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, that kind of creative work,
Hmm.
I think, kind of helps
Hmm.
when things aren't going so great, probably, because
Hmm.
then you're like, okay, well, how am I gonna, move on,
Yeah, I mean, it also, I have to be really honest about a thing, which is that like it really helps me stay excited about this and stay invested in this, that it's not, uh, I'm not trying to make a living in music. I have another profession. I have other things going on in my life. And so in a way that keeps this kind of in the right place for me. I put a lot of myself into this, but I don't have, I'm fortunate to be able to structure it in a way that I'm not depending on it,
Right.
if you know what I mean.
I do, and
Yeah.
I think that also follows, I think it's good to be honest about when you're starting out, you
Hmm.
know, um, when you're young. I feel like I took a ton of chances, and there are some of the
Yeah.
best things I did were not money makers,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they taught me a ton. Even though I did want to be a musician for my profession in different ways,
Hmm.
I had a good sense of like when I was working on stuff. There's some things you do because for money, but there's some things you
Hmm.
do because you love it and you're learning from it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah,
And
and I
and
think
I
you got to
kind
kind of know yourself to do that in the right
of
way. Like I
yeah.
much earlier on, I got to have a conversation with somebody who started what is now a very large and very thriving presenting organization in the area. And when I talked to him, like when he talked about getting started out, it was his temperament was such that like I'm going to risk everything to make this happen. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool, but that's totally not me. Like that's not the position that I'm in. I'm not going to um uh I'm not going to risk losing everything on doing this. You know, like I've got a family, I've got other responsibilities. Like I'm not a swashbuckler. I'm not built like that. So I'm going to like try to do this the way that I know how to do it, which is to do something kind of small and see how it goes, and then do something a little bit bigger.
Mm.
Yeah.
Uh, Mark, what are the things coming up that you're the most excited about, like going taking us out of the spring and into the summer?
Yeah, well, summer will be great. We'll be back at the Eustis Estate in the summer. I'll mention here, August 8th is the fourth annual David Chestnut Jazz Festival at the Eustis. It's still you're still gonna have to wait to hear about lineup there because I'm still working that out, but it'll be another great afternoon of music. That's been a really fun event. It's named for a guy whose family were part of the staff at that estate back in the day, and David Chestnut was uh, uh, worked with the horses on the estate, I think, and did some other things like that, but was also an amateur musician. And I don't have the story quite straight. I should by now, but like his son or nephew actually, I think, taught at Berkeley at some point way back in the day. I really should have that a little tighter by now, but there is some connection there. And so I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be great. Between now and then, we'll have a couple of other outdoor concerts at the Eustis. And over the course of April and May, I've got events in Dorchester and at a storefront art gallery in Quincy that's a newer space for us that is pretty neat too, which actually brings me back to one of the things that you would what did you ask? What would I want students to know about or
Yeah.
something like that? Um, uh, I don't know. I imagine if I lived in Boston as a college student, like my world would be pretty small. I'd go to a few places and kind of stick close to campus, but like I would really encourage people to get out. There's so many great neighborhoods and some of the great music stuff is happening kind of off the, outside of downtown Boston. So um that's a thing. And like that place in Quincy is right by the T. It's a quick the red line is so much better now than it was a couple years ago. It's a quick trip from town. So like that's a place where I'd love to see students come out.
Cool.
Um
Cool.
what else? I don't I tangented.
We're gonna put the calendar out for
Oh,
everyone.
cool. That's great. Yeah.
We will share it on our social media and stuff
Yeah. Oh,
like
thank
that. So
you.
you can find us on Instagram. Our Berkeley Guitar Department
Great.
account will share things, and
Great.
we'll remind people. And if you're a student, we'll remind and or a faculty member will remind you in our newsletter that we send out
Yeah.
on Fridays. And
Right.
that just sounds so much fun. And then if you go to the Eustis Estate, you can also meet the peacock. You know,
That's right. You can meet that peacock. You can learn the peacock's name that I can't remember.
it's like
Yeah.
Patrick or
I
something. It's
think it
like a
might be
Berkeley.
Patrick. It
It
might
might be
actually be
Patrick.
Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the other thing that I feel kind of compelled to say is that like you know how I said that early on I didn't know that this would be meaningful to musicians. What I have learned is that it is very much so. And so one of the hard things about having created this for myself is that I am sort of constantly fielding outreach from people who want me to put on shows for them. And um, that's both very touching and very hard because the answer is almost always I can't. I have really small capacity and I have my own um, kind of tastes and I'm thinking in terms of uh, I am thinking in terms of that big picture in terms of what kinds of things I'm presenting. So that's that's been that's been tough. And so I guess I'm sort of saying that because I really want people to hear like make it happen if you want it to happen, but I probably can't make it happen for you.
But no, but this is also what I'm saying. I think it's so, when I made that other comment, it's good
Yeah.
to know when you are doing something, you're
Yeah.
part of a bigger picture, even though
Totally.
your job is
Totally.
to be yourself. And
Yeah.
then also, it's just good to know that that's happening everywhere. That so that
Yeah.
if someone says, no, we can't present you, it's
Right.
not oh, the subtext is not because you're terrible and we don't
No.
support what you're doing.
No.
It's just that for what we're doing right now, it's not the fit that we can see for this time, right?
Yeah,
We're not able
exactly.
to do it. So
Or
go
yeah.
find, but then it might be though. And then so, and
Yeah.
you can't always know when you're the player, you
Right.
don't always know why someone's like, oh,
Yeah.
what would sound great in this room? This person,
Yeah.
I wonder if they would do it. And
Yeah.
sometimes they'll be like, I wonder if they would say yes. And then you're like, oh,
Right.
of course. And
Yeah.
then you have to sort of have that moment and then and then you can't just like hold on to it so much that you're tied to it so that if it can't happen again right away that you're just crushed by that,
Yeah.
it's not how
Yeah,
things
no,
go.
that's helpful to hear from the musician's perspective. I mean I mean honestly that it has been one of the harder aspects of this. Like it's um uh but like what a great problem to have. Like, like so
That's great. Well, we're just really grateful to have you in our community,
oh,
and
thank you.
thank you for all the beautiful music that you present, and thank you for when you do it you just take such good care of all of
Hmm.
us who have played for you, and I think it does say a lot that everyone I know who's ever played on a concert that you've presented has wanted to be a listener and
Oh,
continue, and that's definitely true for all of us here. So thank you so
oh
much.
wow. Well, thank you so much for saying all that and thanks for inviting me to be on this podcast. This is fun for me and it's the best part about doing this is like getting to know people like you. I mean, like honestly, it's really meaningful as a non-musician to feel as connected to the musical world in Boston as I've as this has made me. Like that's a big deal for me. It feels like the musicians are my people, So
Totally. Yeah,
mm,
that's great. Well, thanks for starting the series and keeping
mm.
it going. Cheryl, do you have any final thoughts as we're kind of wrapping up the?
Well, no, thanks for being on the show and thanks for the all the great stuff that you do. And hopefully this will inspire also people that maybe you're thinking or
Yeah,
they're sitting around going, "Hey, there's nothing going on here."
yeah,
That they could start doing stuff. And you will see me. Believe me, keep sending me because I'm like, "Oh my God, I want to see that." And I'm
I know we.
like, so
hmm.
you will see me in the seat
All right.
soon.
I look forward to it.
That's right. And I'll say, put yourself in the seat if you're a musician. Go
Mm,
and support concerts and support music, and don't think of everything as a transaction. Think of it as a relationship,
mm,
and you'll just have a much better experience, a much more
mm,
rich experience.
mm.
Um, Ben, what about you?
Yeah, and I have a really deep appreciation for what you do. 'Cause, I mean, I grew up musically really where there wasn't much of a scene, so I had to kind of make my own opportunities and
Mm,
kind of be my own promoter and
mm.
you know wear all the different hats with that. And I think it's really important for students to know, especially now where I think especially after COVID, there's not as many
Yeah,
opportunities to be able to play in Boston, at least not in the same capacity that there used to be.
yeah.
So I think it's really important for students to hear,
Hmm.
to take the initiative, and sometimes you got to go beyond just playing, to be able to
Hmm.
to put things together and be able to create opportunities for themselves. And I think that's really
Yeah,
important.
yeah, totally. I mean, right. I mean, venues have closed. I mean, that is undeniably the case. And at the same time, there are some other things that have grown up that are really like I was over at the Square Root the other night in Rosendale Square, where I mean that's one of the most happening places right now for not just jazz, but Brian Friedland has put a lot of effort over a bunch of years into creating a very cool jazz thing there, and now other people are kind of adding to that, and it's that's a coffee shop bar kind of place, and it's totally happening. Like, and that's one example of many. Like, there's just that there's so much cool stuff that's taking place outside of club settings, and that's good for students to know. Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, thank you so
Mm.
much, Mark. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank
Um,
you.
And thanks, Cheryl Bailey. Thank you, Ben Cody. We're going to hang out a little bit longer, but for everybody listening, thanks for being with us, and we will be with you on the next Coffee Talk.